Today I'm going to be covering public speaking. One of the expectations of this course, as you've read in the syllabus and you've seen in some of the assignments, is that you can be an effective public speaker. Now, this class is a little bit unique because we are not going to engage in face-to-face synchronous communication in our public speaking, but rather we're going to be talking to one another via asynchronous communication through recorded communication. But nonetheless, I want to give you a little bit of information about being an effective public speaker and hopefully some things and tips that you can use as you move through putting together your public speaking speech presentations. So one important thing to think about are the different modes of delivery in public speaking. So there are 4 different ways that you can give a speech. You saw them in the PowerPoint slide. And each of them has a pro and con, or actually multiple pros and cons, and they're used in certain situations to communicate certain things. And so for the purpose of this class, I'm asking you to do what's called extemporaneous speaking. Extemporaneous speaking allows for careful preparation, so you will have a very detailed outline, you'll have rehearsed, but at the same time, you are going to appear more fluid and natural because you're going to only use note cards. So you're not memorizing your speech in its entirety, you're not reading it verbatim, but rather you've rehearsed, you've practiced, and you're using keywords and note cards to deliver your speech. And again, like I said, one of the pros is you'll appear more natural, which we like in interpersonal communication, and rehearsed. But one of the downsides, again, is that you don't have your speech written in its entirety in front of you, which can be nerve-wracking. I understand that. It can mean that you can potentially lose your place, but that's okay because A, you're recording it, so guess what? You can record it again. You can start again. And B, it's a learning process. So when we talk about developing the speech, you want to think about a few things. So think about the time limit, because the time limit should influence what you say and the amount of detail and examples you will provide. You want to carefully select your topic, be creative. Take into consideration that I have to watch roughly 20 of these videos. So the more creative you are, the more that I can remember your speech in a positive way. That will probably better reflect on your grade. And then finally, you want to think about the use of language. So we've talked about verbal communication and we've talked about nonverbal communication. So how can you use both of those types of communication, both of those channels, to enhance your presentation? In terms of structure, it's important to follow the 3-part framework. So you've done this in your writing. This is the idea of the intro, the body, and the conclusion. And there are certain expectations and certain functions each of these play. So as you would imagine in the intro, you're going to grab our attention. So you want a unique attention grabber. And the reading that I posted online should give you some examples of attention grabbers. Think of these also if you've heard of the term rhetorical strategies. These are great ways to grab our attention and introduce your topic. So potentially using a simile, a metaphor, humor appropriately, stories, a question. So all of those would be examples of attention grabbers. So grabbing our interest and introducing the topic. You'll have a thesis statement, again, a declarative statement about what you believe to be true of your topic. You should hopefully tell us why we should listen. Why is this topic important? You're going to establish your credibility. So what have you done? How have you prepared to make you an expert on the topic? Potentially you have done some research, you've consulted databases, you've consulted some articles. Possibly you've had an experience, you've worked in a particular profession that has allowed you to engage in a particular issue or topic, so that can make you an expert. But you want to let us know, us, the audience, what makes you an expert on the topic. And then finally, you want to preview your main points, because this is going to help with organization. It serves as a signpost, allows us, the audience, ways to think about and listen, things to expect in your speech. In your body, you want to organize it in a particular way. Again, the reading talked about some of the different organizational strategies, and you saw that in your PowerPoint. Maybe you want to organize your speech around time. So your first main point could deal with the past. Your second main point, the present, and your third main point, the future. You want to make sure that you limit your ideas and your examples. So typically we say roughly 3 main points, probably given the time constraints that you'll have in this class, and thinking about 2 to 3 subpoints supporting facts, evidence within each of those main points. And you want to transition between ideas. So show the connection between each of the major themes within the body of your speech. And then finally, your conclusion. Now, this is where most students, unfortunately, fail. I've taught public speaking for many, many, many years now, and I would say this is where students struggle the most. So oftentimes, students just end a speech, and it ends after the body. So there's no clearly designated, articulated conclusion, which just seems awkward. And it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So we're left sort of hanging. The conclusion helps to wrap things up. It pulls things together. It reiterates the thesis statement. It summarizes the main points and leaves us with a lasting, notable idea, hopefully a positive impression, which is going to help with recall later on. So if I'm thinking about a topic, I'll hopefully think back to the conclusion, which will then spur me to think about some of your main points. Make sure that you rehearse your speech. Practice aloud. You can practice in front of the mirror. You can practice on your computer. Record and delete as many times as you want. Also make sure that you're timing yourself so you stay within the time constraints. Presenting, so thinking about some of your nonverbal behaviors. So a lot of the things I just talked about dealt with your verbal. So thinking about using words correctly, signpost, organization, all has to do with verbal communication. Now, presenting non-verbally, you want to think about what you're doing with your body. So making sure you're making eye contact. You are not reading from your note cards. You can glance at them. Luckily for you, again, you have a computer, so maybe you can post them on a wall so it won't even look like you're reading anything. You want to think about natural gestures. Also, articulation would be important. Thinking about hand gestures. People who don't use hand gestures tend to look odd. And students, when they are giving a speech, stand in front of a podium and they stand super erect and they don't move their body, and you're like, that does not look right. So we want to, as we said, with extemporaneous speaking, appear more natural. So think about what you're doing with your gestures. Speak expressively, meaning don't be monotone. It is boring. You've probably had a professor who speaks in monotone. You are telling us an interesting story. Use your pitch, your volume, your tone to engage us in your story. And again, help us with recall. And do things to help reduce your anxiety and uncertainty. Record in a place that you feel comfortable. Practice enough times that you feel comfortable. Go over the expectations of the assignment enough so that you know that you are hitting all of the requirements. Again, please make sure that you read through the expectations for the speeches, and also think about outlining, because outlining also is an important piece of speaking in public. It's the behind the scenes part where you are going to prepare so that you give an effective, interesting speech.